Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be drafting a corset pattern. If you guys want to see how I did this, please stay to the end of the video and let me know what you think. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, please let me know in the comments. And also give this video a thumbs up. Now let's get into this tutorial. So I'm starting off with a basic bodice block. So here's the bust line, the waistline, and the hip line. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because I'm making a corset, and this corset is an open back corset. So I'm going to determine how cinched I want my waist in. Mind you, this pattern already has all the seam allowance in it already. So I don't need to add any extra for seam allowance. I have about 1 inch seam allowance even on the bust, the waist, and the hip. So I'm going to determine how cinched I want my waist to be. So here my waist is 66 centimeters, which is about 26 inches. So I aim for the waist to be about 23 inches after, my corset is like tied and all. So I'm going to try to shape out the waist with about 3 inches. So to do that, I'm going to start with the front. And the first thing I'll do is measure the lengths. I want to get my style length first before I can now start shaping out the waist. So for the length, I'm going to measure from the neck point down. I'm going to use 23 inches as my corset length. So here I mark that. And I'm just going to extend that line to the back, like so. So once I've marked the length, towards the side of the corset, I want it to be about 3.5 inch. So here, I'm at 3.5 inch. And then now I'm going to draw my style line. Also the same thing on the side of the back. I'm at the 3.5 inch. And then I want it to have like a curved shape at the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that curve. I'm going to start with my pencil first so that I get the perfect curve before I read. Next, I'm going to draw the curve for the back as well. Next, I'm going to measure my underbust. Now, to avoid having a super long cups, what you want to do is you take away 2 cm from your underbust measurement. I want a rounded shape cup, and also to have that push-up effect, I'm going to take away 2 cm from the underbust. So instead of using 38 cm as my underbust, I'm going to use 36 cm. So from the neck point, I'm going to mark 36 cm. And draw a short curve. Just draw a short line across like so. Next, for the underbust shaping, I'm going to use 2 cm to shape the underbust on both sides of the dot. So I'm going to mark 2 cm. Now, so here I'm going to shape this with 2 cm right here. Next, I'm going to connect the dots of the shoulder to the waist dot. And then mark my nipple point, which is point X on the true bust line. So this is like the fullest part of my bust. Now, the way I determine how many cm to shape the underbust, I usually go by the bust size. So say for a smaller bust size, I would use 1 to 1.5 cm. But for like a medium sized bust, I use 2 cm. And for like a large bust, I use 2.5 cm. So in case you're doing different sizes, just please take note. So once I've marked that, I'm going to go ahead and draw my bust curve with my French curve. So once that is done, I'm going to go ahead to start shaping the waist. Now, like I said, I was going to cinch my waist with about 3 inches. So that 3 inches, I'm going to mark it in cm. So that 3 inches is about, say, let's say 8 cm, right? So that 8 cm, I'm going to divide that 8 cm into 4 parts, because the front side, this is just half of the front and half of the back. So mind you, we have, another half of the back and then another half of the front. So divide the 8 into 4, we're going to be left with 2 cm. So that'll be 2 cm on this side, and then 2 cm on the front side, and then 2 cm also at the back side. So for the back, I'm going to be creating another panel line. That's where I'm going to shape out that 2 cm. But on the front, I just want one panel line. So I'm not going to, make another panel here, because the style of my corset, I'm actually using a bone casing to add in my boning. So I'm not going to like cut through the panel to add the boning. The boning is going to be on top of this side of the panel. So the only panel I'm going to have will be this. So the 2 cm is going to be shaped here. But in cases where I have maybe, say, several panels, I can now split that 2 cm, to shape out other sides of the panel. But because this is the only panel I'm shaping, I'm going to just leave that here. So just going to mark 1 cm on the waistline from the side of the dot. Also another 1 cm here. And next I'm going to just connect it to this point. So let's turn it this way. I'm going to mark this, and then connect here. So to just shape the hip points to a little, I can do about, say, maybe 0.5 cm here and 0.5 cm here. And then I can just draw to that point like that. So I'm just going to use my darker marker so that you see everything clearly. So here, try that. So here I'm just going to cut out my pattern so that it's easy for me to fold out my dots. So to mark the neck depth here, which is the part where the corset will sit over the chest. So for this, I'm going to use 17.5 cm, 17.5 cm. So I'm going to measure that from the nape of the neck, from the neck point up onto this point. So 17.5 will be somewhere around here. Next, on the CF line, I'm going to measure the cleavage depth. That's, how deep I want the center of the neckline to be. So for that, I'm going to use 16 cm. So from the base of the neck, I'm going to measure 16 cm right here. Next, to get the center gap of the corset, I'm going to use 1 cm. Now from this point, I'm going to go ahead and draw my neckline. So I'm just going to and once this is done, I'm going to go ahead and open this out and shape the chest. So towards here, I'm going to mark 1.5, and then here 1 cm. So here 1 cm, 1.5 cm. Now next, I'm going to connect this point to join to this point. I'm going to use the slight French curve, not the super curvy one. So I'm just going to connect like so. And then here, connect like so. And once I've done this, I'm going to close the neckline again over this new dots that I made here, like this, and then just redraw, smoothing that neckline. Once the neckline is drawn, I'm going to now mark out my cup shape, draw out my cup shape. So to do this, I'm going to measure from the side. Here already, my pattern already has a 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to note that seam allowance right here, which is 2.5 cm, same as 1 inch. I'm just going to mark this point on my bust line. Next, from that point, I'm going to measure 3.5 cm right on this line. Now, this is just a gauge to help me draw my cup out. So next, I'm going to connect this to this point. Now, when you're connecting these points, make sure you use like the deepest part of the curve so that, it comes out as round as possible. Or I'm going to place this, make sure it's connecting. That's connecting from this point here to the underbust point. So next, here, let me just mark this out, 3.5 cm after my seam allowance. So here's my seam, which was 1 inch here, and then from there I marked 3.5 cm. So in case you're using, in a case where you're using a bodice that doesn't have a seam allowance attached, then you could just start directly from the side seam. But if you do have seam allowance, mark out that seam allowance first before you mark this 3.5 cm. Now this measurement works for most sizes because this is like one of the techniques I use, making corset for clients and stuff like that. So next, I'm going to connect using this as a gauge to this point here. Remember, like I said, you want to use the deepest part of the curve so that you have a rounded cup. So here, I'm just going to place this here, making sure it's on the deepest side. Not like this. No, that would do the deepest part. Like so. Using this side as a gauge. Connect now. Passing through there to the underbust. Once this is done, if you look at it closely, you see that it's already, looking like a U shape. And then you can just do this together and put this together so that you see the shape there. Also, if you do have like an underwire, you can also use your underwire as a gauge. So here we already have this, this is the regular 2-part corset. So if you want like a 3-part, to mark the top line, I'm going to measure, let me see, going to measure 2.5 from here, from this top, measure 2.5 inch here, on the next side as well, measure 2.5 inch to the side. I'm also going to do the same, 2.5, and then towards the CF, I'm going to use 2 inches. And next, I'm just going to connect the points. So here is the 3-part corset now. So now this is the front so far. Now before I come here to finalize the front, I'm going to move to the back part so that I can also draw my neckline and also do the waist shaping. So same thing here that I did. I took the side seam from the armhole down with 1.5 cm. So I'm going to mark that 1.5 right here. And then for the back depth, I'm going to use Thank you. Okay, thank you, baby. So for my back depth, I'm going to measure from the base of my neck at the back, just to your desired depth. So for this, I'm going to use 23 cm. That's about 9¼ inch. So I'm going to mark 23 here. And actually, I'm going to take it a little lower than that. So let's do 24. I'm going to make it 24 cm. So from that point, I'm going to connect to match up to this point. Like so. The next thing I'm going to do is extend the waist dart to the top line. Now once that is done, remember we'll also have to take 2 cm, shape the waist here at the back with 2 cm. So to do that, I'm going to draw another panel line. So for that, I'm going to take 1½ inch, 1½ inch from here to get my next panel. So I'm going to mark 1½ inch. So to shape the waist on the back, I'm going to draw out another panel. So for this, from this waist dart, I'm going to mark 1½ inch. Then from that 1½ inch, I'm going to the 2 cm that we have here to shape the waist, I'm going to use 1.5 cm for the dart, and then use the other 0.5 on the side. So first, let me mark out the 1.5 cm here. So this is the 1.5. Mark the center, and then extend that line. Then just mark out the dots like so. And then the remaining 0.5, so I'm just going to take that on the waist right there. Now once this is done, I'm going to mark the open back. Now how wide I want the back of the corset to be open. I'm going to do 1½ inch. So here, from the CB, I'm going to mark 1½ inch, 1½ inch, 1½ inch, which is 4 cm. If we're going by that. The next, I'm just going to connect using a slight curve. Like so. So this is my new CB. The same way I shaped the side over here, I'm going to head to do the same here on the side of the front as well. So next, I'm just going to mark out my panel lines of where I'm going to put my bone casing. So I run one facing this way. There's going to be a bony line on here. So I'm just going to label out my pattern properly. So here's my CF, center front. I'm going to cut and fold. So guys, that's the pattern.